Good morning and welcome to the Environmental Echo, PWGC's monthly podcast. I am Paul Boyce, CEO and President of PWGC and your host. And today we've got, as always, we've got a great topic. You know, this is one that I find very interesting, very fascinating, and unfortunately I do not know very much about. But our firm and a lot of other people are well into this. It's, utilizing some of the latest technologies out there, and we're going to be talking about drones and how they're applicable to environmental work and the environment, And we've got some great guests from our own staff today at PWGC. We've got Peter Hayes, who is our GIS Analyst specialist. What's the title there, Peter?
Senior GIS Analyst.
Oh, that's right. We got promoted. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We've got Usman Chaudhry, who's been with us for 8 years now, which that's, again, another surprise. It seems like just yesterday you walked in the door, right?
Yes.
And your role at PWGC, I know we have you out of our Saratoga Springs office, but what's your exact title these
my
days,
exact
Usman?
title these days is Senior Hydrogeologist. I work most of my time in Bohemia office, but, we started Saratoga office, so we needed people to build that up and come up to the speed. So I volunteered to
Excellent.
have it there for a couple of years.
So again, getting back to the topic at hand, before we start that, I just want to remind our listeners and viewers, if you guys have any questions or looking to reach out to us in any shape, form, or manner, you have a question, a comment, a thought you want to share on the topic or something else, you have topics you want to bring up, best way to get a hold of us is our website, which is www.pwgrocer.com/podcast. And it's been a great way to reach our listeners and viewers and get a hold of us as well. And we do the best we can to get right back to you. So anyone has any questions, comments they want to share with us, please feel free to do that. So again, drones, for those of us that don't know what they are, we're talking about the aerial drones, right? The ones we send up in the air, we fly them. You need licenses, you need pilots, you need all sorts of technology and know-how and how to use them. So let's start with, how and why did we get involved with this stuff at PW Grocer,
So I will just relay a little bit of background story. So we had a client that called us. He had a site where he wanted to do a stockpile inventory. And Chris Omskog, who is senior vice president now.
And a past guest. Well, I don't know if we've had him on the show yet, but he's, we will one of these days, yes.
Yeah, I was returning from one of my sites in the city on LIR. He called me and he was like, one of the clients called, can we do it? And we were obviously, in PW Grocer and especially in the group, we were already, researching in this kind of technology in 2018. So we had a small drone and we were like, yes, we can do it, So we went on there. That kind of sparked that drone progressed. We did the imagery for the site. The client needed the latest imagery and he needed the stockpile inventory. We did it for that site. It worked out really good. The results were good. And that kind of sparked the drone progress in PW Grocer. And, we saw the benefits of it, what we can get from the drones.
So, in terms of these drones, right, I know a little bit about them, and I've seen my nephews and everybody else is playing with these things, and I've seen guys down at the beach send them up and take pictures of us while we're surfing and stuff, and it's really neat. But what are they? How do they work? What's the whole principle? I see rotors or propellers, they're not jet propulsion yet, but Peter, how does a drone work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So essentially, the drone really works pretty seamlessly. We're able to fly the drone typically around 200 feet, 250 feet. And for those who aren't aware, the drone has a camera attached to it. Our camera is a 20 megapixel camera. So essentially we're able to fly the drone over sites and take some really high quality imagery of these sites. And through receiving that imagery, we're able to really create some really interesting and high quality deliverables with some great accuracy.
Again, I've seen young kids playing with these things at the beach, at their backyards. Are they pretty simple or easy to manipulate, fly? Can anybody do it? What's the deal with these things?
So basically drones can be used for two purposes. As you said, either they could use for just for recreational purposes. You fly, you take imagery, or you could use it for commercial purposes. Commercial means that you're producing a product from the drone that's going to get you money. And if you're doing for commercial purposes, then you have to be a licensed Part 107 FAA certified UAV pilot that you need to take a test for. You need to study for that exam. And once you pass that, you get a license that you can fly the UAV, which is unmanned aerial vehicle license, that you could do it for smaller drones. You could use that for commercial purposes. So yeah, anybody could do it, but to do it commercially, you need to have a license. For recreational purposes, the drones are so automated right now. They have sensors on them. So if you turn on, and if somebody's trying to learn, you could start from the beginner level, and then you could go to the higher level. Depends upon, what your skills are, how do you control it. And you can start from turning on all the sensors that will not let you hit a tree or a wall or something like that. And then you can, once you get more hands-on with the drone, that you could go for like upper levels, like, people are using it to get a very good imagery for just recreational purposes. If you want that, once you get more hands-on, you use it more, then you can do it like anybody could do.
I mean, Usman, I've seen some really cool YouTube videos that have had to been drones, okay? It wasn't,
Yeah.
I mean, it was just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, imagine like, for example, in movie creation, they were using helicopters with somebody hanging and it had a big camera on it. And now they're using like drones with high speed that they are doing like in action movie scenes, like chasing cars and stuff.
So you brought up something I thought was a little interesting, and that's the getting this certified drone pilot license, right? Is the only requirement for that to take a test and pass it, or do they do like a background check? I mean, is there any other type of courses you have to complete, or how does someone become a certified drone pilot?
So basically, you have to take a web training. There are different courses that are available online in which you study like the literature part of it, you study sectional charts, and then you register for the exam, and they do all the background checks. And then, mostly for the staff, we consider doing some shadow projects also, like if somebody's going to the site, they will take them and we have a hands-on training, and then we go for the exam. And anybody could take that exam, but definitely they, as you said, they have to go through the application procedure. They have to study, they have to learn the charts, and then you go for the exam part. And once you pass, they give you you have to register with FAA, and then FAA does that all the checks, and then they send you the card for the drone license.
Okay, and part of the commercial process, Peter, and you've showed me this before back in the office, and you have to file a flight plan, right?
Yes, that's
if,
correct.
If you want to go out and fly a site or fly a structure or something, you got to file a flight plan, which I was like, holy cow, wow. And you showed me it was all done online, and it was done relatively quickly, and you even done it not too far in advance of actually having to run out in the field, because there's been times we've had clients, I got an emergency, I need somebody to get out here, and you're like, well, I got to do this first, and you've done it. What's the process with filing a flight plan for a drone, flyover or imagery or whatever we're going to be doing?
Yeah, so it's actually a very, very straightforward process in some cases. So a few airports now have an automated system available, such as, I believe, MacArthur Airport, JFK has now put that into place. So that's, as you mentioned, for this particular site that we were working on at the time, they actually had that automatic authorization available. So really, before flying a site, you want to ensure that if you want to make sure whether you are flying in an authorized airspace or an unauthorized airspace, and if you're inside of an airport's airspace, then you want to make sure that you take the steps to receive that proper authorization. So basically, you're sending your information as a licensed pilot. You're sending the height that you'll be flying at, generally the radius that you'll be covering. It's a very straightforward process. In some cases, if you're doing a flight that's like closer to an airport, it can become more rigorous. And then you actually have to go through what's called the FAA drone zone. And through there, you fill out a more thorough application, which that sometimes can have more of a week-long review process. So that's where things get a little bit more involved and take a little bit more time in planning.
So that's an interesting thing. You brought up authorized and unauthorized. I mean, there's places like you can't fly over, right? What's the maximum height we could fly a drone at, say here in Long Island, New York City, upstate?
So FA limit flying over is 400 feet, even if the areas there no airspace limitations. You don't want to go over 400. And usually the sites we are flying over, either they are mine sites or are they're like more populated.
So why do they limit it at 400? Why not 500? Is that just because of commercial aircraft, or they're just worried you're going to, cause a problem, or?
So basically, yeah, this is that, the first right of way is for the commercial aircraft. So they want to limit it to a level where there is very less chances of you encountering a commercial aircraft or you going over a limit that can cause problem for other airspaces.
Man, interesting. So, what are the other requirements for flying these things commercially? I mean, besides height restrictions, I mean, when you file that flight plan, and I assume it gets approved by somebody, right? What happens if you have to deviate from that flight plan? All of a sudden, field conditions change, or you guys see something like, I really need to go and get an image of that, and it's outside of what I said. What happens?
So if it's for a matter of safety, say maybe possibly a bird is flying close to your drone, and technically you're not allowed to fly above a certain height. In that instance, if there's a safety risk, you're able to kind of deviate from that plan, and then as soon as possible, when it becomes safe again, you should go back to the plan that you originally set out. In terms of trying to receive imagery, there are some kind of workarounds. In some cases, I've been able to work with some people who have some more insight into how like the air traffic control towers work. For certain situations, some control towers, for example, will maybe only operate from hypothetically from like 8 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
So then say it's in the summer, you may have some more daylight time right before that 8 a.m. mark. So you can kind of work with that time, work around those time constraints. So that you have to, guys, I guess, get a little bit creative sometimes.
Are you guys, you're not allowed to fly after dark or something like that? I mean, obviously there's got to be line of sight, I've heard, with when you're operating the drone.
Yeah, so for example, if you're going to a bigger site, some of our mining sites, they're like maybe 200, 300 acres. We want to make sure that we have multiple peoples on site, so we have drone insight all the time. And, we are continuously communicating between each other to make sure that they have the line of sight of the drone. And also, we are not allowed to fly half an hour before, after the sunrise and half an hour before the sunset. You could do those nighttime flyovers, but you have to file a special waiver to do the flyovers in the nighttime or in the dark or in less light.
Oh man, wild. I mean, because I know we do things not only just with photography or televising stuff, but we do like thermal imagery and all sorts of really unique stuff that you may not see with, say, the naked eye.
Yeah.
Right. So you wouldn't even need daylight per se to pick this up, especially if you're looking for like heat loss on a building or moisture or something like that. Correct?
Yeah. So I've worked with thermal drones. You have to be very precise and perfect for the day that you choose. It doesn't have to be super cold. Doesn't have to be super hot. The moisture should be very moderate, to kind of give you good results.
Mm-hmm.
We have used for some of our clients that have the asphalt facilities, and they store liquid asphalts, and those tanks are heated by like gas most of the time. And they have asked us to fly over and see where the heating leak is, so they can check the areas for the insulation or if they need to do any repairs. And you have to see the other impact also that it's causing. That once you repair that area, your gas bill goes down. You're more efficient in heating that area. Plus, you could cover any potential leaks that might happen in the future beforehand. So, that saves them a lot of time, a lot of trouble, and
money.
And a lot of money. And, rather than replacing
100%.
the whole tank, now they can focus on one area that they know that they need to focus on to kind of do the repairs.
And here's another thing that just jumped into my mind as we're talking about this. And I know both of you guys have mentioned this to me before, and you were just touching on it. Weather conditions, right? If it gets too windy, we're not allowed to fly these things, or you guys just don't feel like going out and telling me it's too windy that day? What's the real story here?
So yeah, you should really be using your best judgment, and I think that's something we've kind of gained you kind of gain experience in, having flown now for multiple years. Typically, we try to fly when the wind speed is under like 13 miles per hour. We have, in instances when it's a very pressing timeline for a project, flown at higher wind speeds. But again, we take many precautions when we're flying it and making sure, you're, of course, obviously you should be maintaining your line of sight, but just, again, being extra cautious when you're flying in these higher wind speeds. In terms of
what can happen? It'll just blow us off course. It'll knock us out of the air. Or we're just going to get too shaky for a good picture. What happens?
I mean, first, as you mentioned, it might get more shaky for a picture. Usually what happens is before going out to a site, because the drone flies on an automated path and we kind of make sure that, we are collecting the image overlap that we're going to need for that project. So it might sway the drone away from that path a little bit, but drone will force the air to come back to the same point. But also, you have to see a lot of other things like, it's going to use more battery power to fight the air to come back into the path. Plus the sites you are flying on, like, sometimes we tend to not fly in higher winds in the areas that are more open, like a mining site, because it will have more air. Or maybe if it's if it's pressing to do that, we'll prefer to do it in a less populated area. Then, if there's a site that nobody's there on, there's no buildings, and it's like an open site, then we might put a little bit buffer in, like, our wind speeds. But, we would preferably not do it in a populated area where you can encounter people and have buildings and like that. So we will prefer to stay safer.
Makes sense to me. I mean, again, I'm not the pilot, right? And I know that besides just the environmental applications, I know there's other engineering companies that do like bridge inspections that used to have to, guys would have to physically get out and climb on this bridge. And now they can, as long as they have line of sight with the drone, they can send it up there and get a really good, clear picture. I mean, you guys know anything about that?
We haven't done the bridge inspections.
Well, that's not us. That's not environmental, right?
But they do have drones now that you can rotate cameras on 360 degrees. So you could go under the bridge and, you could point the camera up and you can inspect the areas that you want. I think I was in training, they were discussing like there's some hammer inspections they do for bridges. There's some ways of doing that. So they might have got like up to a point where they have like the attachments for those kind of special experiments. So if somebody then going on to bridge, you can put like a small hammer or something that can do that for you. You just take the drone out. And
this is getting crazy.
Yeah.
But I think you brought up a really good point, Paul, is just like the safety benefits of flying these drones.
Yeah.
You don't have to send a person up there. Or like, I think even the project we were just discussing before where we got authorization to fly, that flight was actually for a boiler room explosion situation.
Yep.
At one of our facilities. So rather than having to have somebody physically go up on the roof, we were able to fly the drone over the roof and see what the structure was looking like at the time, if it was actually safe to go up there, and to get kind of a bird's eye view again. There's definitely those safety benefits associated with the drone usage. Yeah,
I mean, if you see some of the thermal drones have been used to kind of, study the slope stability, rather than sending somebody like these mining site might have steep slopes, rather than sending somebody on the slope, you do a thermal imagery of that first. You see your moisture spots, you see if there's any cracks or anything that can cause, failure of the slope, so you can handle it beforehand, and you could save.
Well, and you guys brought up another good point that a lot of people don't realize is these things are battery powered, right?
Yes.
And batteries add a lot of weight, right?
Yes.
What's the typical flight life, I guess, of a battery? I mean, how long can we keep a drone up in the air, like say one of our typical units?
So as I said, it depends upon the weather, the wind conditions. Like right now it's winter, and if we have a very cold day,
it's going to affect your battery.
It's going to affect the battery power. So it typically ranges between, like, the drone we have, which is DJI Phantom 4, the second version of it. It typically is between 21 to 25 minutes. I'm averaging for the winters, and with the wind conditions that we can encounter, usually it ranges between that. So sometimes we have to use like 6 to 7 batteries if we are covering a very big site.
Oh yeah, it's an all-day project, huh?
Yeah.
6 or 7 batteries. So, and how involved is it changing out of batteries? Is it just like like my cordless drill, bam, bam, it's in and out?
Yes. So the drone knows where it flew from, and it knows the distance and the battery it's going to take to go back to that point where it flew from. So once it gets to a point where the battery is low, it starts beeping, and then it has a feature which we can manually use to bring it back to the point where it flew from, or it automatically comes back once it knows that it cannot go any further.
And now you guys are bringing, and we've all seen like these almost like laser light shows where they've put up like dozens of drones up in the air at once, and they're all synchronized. Have we ever done anything with multiple drones at one time, or we haven't had to do that yet?
We haven't had done that yet because most of the time that once we go out to the site, we are very focused on the data that we need from the site. So we have originally planned, and but we could we sometimes have rented specialty equipment, as I told you, thermal drones, just to perform the client specified inspections or what they need for their project.
Interesting. Something else that you guys have taught me a little bit about, and I don't know a whole bunch, but like ground control, right? So you guys have these control points on the ground. Explain how we use those, what they are, why it's important to do that, and you've mentioned once people have picked them up and stolen them on us. But before we get into that, really, what's the importance of having these little targets on the ground?
So basically, the ground control points we use are aero propeller points. So there are small square which has color markings on it, and it has a solar panel in there and a GPS system. So the GPS system is continuously collecting the elevation data while we fly over, and once we have done the flyover, we bring the imagery back from the drone, and once we are doing the processing, then we can, once we have done the initial step where we stitch up all the photos that we have collected together, then we go on to the software and we see the imagery, and then we select those ground control points to correct the elevations up to a level of the accuracy where they are in like maybe quarter of an inch of accuracy.
Holy cow. I mean, I know we've used this in like, we've had folks on the podcast before with the mining industry. They're excavating these gigantic pits or holes to get sand, gravel, stone, and we're doing these, they have stockpiles. They want to do reserve analysis. And I know we've used the drones for that before, and you're down to the quarter of an inch accuracy.
Yes.
That's impressive, especially at that scale.
Yeah. So we usually do those, asset management for our mining clients where we do the stockpile volume, so they know that how much they had produced, how much they would produce. And we have been tested time over time where the clients get our number, they have their own internal numbers also, and they have compared with us. So the error margin is with few hundred yards, which is very good for them,
I would say, for that that scale. 100%.
And they have used, they are using our numbers. Some of the mining clients we fly over every quarter to give them the numbers, and they use those numbers to get their yearly reports out and keep their stock up to date.
Wow. And, we can just start talking about some of the applications we've done. We've mentioned, emergency situation with a client who had an explosion in a building. We've talked about the reserve analyses for mines. But Usman, I know I've sent you out on a couple of water-related activities, like ponds or marine construction. Can you describe a couple of those applications that we've used the drones for?
So we have used it for some of the lake restoration projects that we have done.
Oh, yeah. That was also a topic on the podcast for our listeners.
Yeah, so we have used that over there. We have done, which I would call a construction progress reports, where we have taken the imagery and where we have taken the elevations to kind of see where the lake, when it was drained, was originally at, it was
super cool.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah. So, and then when we kind of dredged it, which step it came up to, and, the middle part of the construction and the last part where we start to kind of
restoration
process. Yes. And the interesting one that we have done is the Sag Harbor Wharf, where it was amazing.
Another great project. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, we have started from initially how the wharf looked like. Then we had the progress in the middle of when they were doing in construction phase, and the last phase that they have done. And
it is neat to see that transformation when you start out with this, structure that really needs some TLC, and the final product you end up with this, really amazing, beautiful, public benefit type of thing with, it was really cool.
Yeah, you could actually see the progress, but it's a very good marketing tool also. You could see the
for the village. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's a very good tool that you could see the progress. You could see, actually the thing that was before and what it came out to be, and how it's going to attract different people from around the world. The other projects that was very interesting we did a beach restoration project with one of the clients, so you could actually see that how the beach was eroded, and then they started leveling it with sand, and they started putting in sand, that we were able to calculate how much sand they have put down. And actually the effect after that is that you have saved a lot of real estate around that beach from getting eroded, and getting affected by that beach erosion. So that was a good project.
There's been a lot of good projects with these things. Another thing that I thought was interesting, I've been to a couple trade shows for the engineering industry and whatnot, and occasionally they have these drone vendors there, right? And I've seen ours, and then I've seen what's out there, right? And these things are $500,000 plus, probably even more now with inflation and everything else that's been going on. Can you tell me a little bit about some of these more advanced things that maybe it's beyond what we're doing? It was incredible what I saw. The thing was huge.
Well, there are fixed wing drones, which can cover a bit more area than our propeller.
So what's that, like a giant model airplane, you tell me, Peter?
Essentially, that's what they look like. And yeah, there's also drones that are better used for like these bridge inspections we were talking about, where you can get closer up to because one of the issues we can run into with our drone is if you get too close to something a metal object that can mess up with your connection.
So that could interfere with the way you're controlling it. Oh wow! I think we've had those issues, haven't we, Usman?
Yes, we had those issues. Especially flying along, millions of dollars of yachts. We have to be very careful. And then we can come over that. There are technologies available that can remove the effect of that signal problem around metallic things. And also there's drones that I was looking into one of the videos that had a cage around it to make sure that if you can fly in bigger size pipes. I was discussing it with Chris. We had the projects can we do inspection inside the pipes? I was like, maybe if we could see this drone is available for rental, we could, as I told you before, we could rent out specialty equipment if we need it for one project use that we know of.
So they're flying drones in the pipes?
Yes, you could fly.
That's incredible.
If it's a big size pipe.
With the line of sight, are you still responsible for that? Because it goes into a pipe, it's going to be real hard to see.
So, you get a real-time traction on the controller also, and you're right, it's hard to see, but the cage around that drone is built up for a way that, that it's going to protect your drone. And if you are inside, say, for example, a 2-foot pipe or something like that, the problem with line of sight is to make sure that you're not interfering with the commercial flights, you're not causing anybody harm, or you're not putting anybody's safety in danger. But in the pipe, you're not going to encounter that. In an empty pipe, if you just want to see where it ends up or where it goes, the length of the pipe, or see the inside of the pipe, you could actually introduce. It's basically doing borehole imagery, but using a drone.
I've also heard, and maybe not us, but I've heard people flying them inside buildings even, to get up, and you got maybe a large auditorium or something, and they're doing an inspection or trying to take a look at something. I've heard of them using it inside the building. Is that correct? Yeah,
you could use it inside. As I told you, once you I might have done like maybe more than 500 flights. So, as you get savvy with the controls, you have more control over the drones, and you can turn off the sensors, and you can do a free flight.
Wow.
But you need to make sure that there's nobody in the way that you can put their safety in danger. So safety is the first priority. So we want to make sure that whatever we are doing, we are be very cautious of our surroundings. If we're doing inside a building, and if I'm flying over area, I would not fly over on top of somebody's head. So I would make sure the area that I'm flying over inside the building is cleared out.
It's very interesting, and then the other things I've read is, and I've seen YouTube videos and whatnot. You've seen, you go outside and an eagle or a hawk sees your drone and is very curious. Have you guys had any instances with, birds or other airborne critters coming in and attacking or being real curious?
Sometimes they'll be nearby while you're flying, like a flock of birds. Well, and again, that comes down to if say you're doing a flight path, you need to be ready to switch it back into manual mode and, drop your altitude quickly if necessary. So again, that comes back to safety is the first. First, safety is the key, and then, return to getting your deliverables that you're trying to get for your client. So the safety definitely comes first. But yeah, that's definitely something that we kind of run into at a lot of sites. You'll see flocks of seagulls and geese all around.
Especially you talk about these water bodies we're going over and stuff, and I've had them hit my car. If it hits our drone, forget it. There's going to be nothing left of the thing.
Yeah, sometimes I've seen that the noise that drone makes, it kind of they don't want to come near it, but sometimes as you said, a hawk or a more aggressive bird that has the curiosity can come down. But if I see something like that, I would preferably bring my altitude of the drone down a little bit, and be within visual sight of it, and make sure that I have the manual control so I can maneuver it as needed rather than being on automatic controls.
Wow. And you guys, you touched on this a little bit earlier too, is, now that we've collected all this data, this whatever GPS and imagery and thermal imagery and just analysis of slopes and moisture and heat, and you mentioned, downloading and processing it, and what you guys have told me and what you've shown me, it's a pretty involved process, and it generally takes a little bit of time. Can you describe what goes on once we collect the data? What do we do with it? How do we get it off the drone, and how do we use it?
So, as with everything, the priority is to make sure that, the data that we collect is safe, and, it's used as per our client's requirements, how it's being used. So we have a very good computer in-house, which we spend
a lot of
thousands
money.
of dollars on.
Yeah, we spend a lot of money.
So we have a capability of, processing this data very quickly and very efficiently. We use processing software of the photo. It's a photogrammetric software that I'm certified in. I had training on it, so I'm a certified user. So we use it in house. We train the new staff on that also. So we do all the imagery and do it in house processing. It is a process that takes time, but we want to make sure that all the data we collect is saved, and we have records of all the safe data in-house to, keep it safe and be used as client's requirements. So we do in-house processing of all the imagery, and we produce all the data in-house.
So how do you get it to do the computations then to estimate, how many cubic yards are in a stockpile of sand or gravel or something like that? What's involved with that?
Yeah, so essentially the software that Usman was just discussing, it essentially just pieces together all this imagery, and that imagery is already geotagged. So once that all gets pieced together, it creates what we call a point cloud, and through that we create a DSM. Don't want to get too technical for people here, but yeah, essentially with that point cloud and that information, we're then able to draw around the stockpiles and perform these volume calculations within Pix4D. And also and then once we kind of have all those deliverables, we're also able to kind of work seamlessly with that data with our other softwares in-house, like Civil 3D.
Oh, yeah. I've seen what you guys do with that. It's absolutely incredible.
So, yeah, it's really, really a very impressive software, really can get us some very accurate and I think impressive deliverables for our clients.
I mean, this drone stuff is absolutely fascinating. Do you guys have anything you want to add to the conversation before we wrap it up for the day? I mean, any parting thoughts or something we didn't cover?
Yeah, I would say that, how, as Pete said, the data incorporates with other softwares. I would like to add on that this data incorporates with the other data also, like some of the sites that we have gone from like under the water data to incorporating the drone data.
Right.
We have used what's called Hydrone, a drone that is basically
Submarine.
like a boat. Yeah, it's like a boat and that collects the bathymetric data. And what we have done is we have used that bathymetric data, and we use an echo sounder to collect the data, and then we have merged that data with our drone flyover data to get the reserve analysis, which is under the water, plus the reserves that
forgot
are
all
above
about
the ground.
that. That was really impressive, that one.
Yeah. So it, and we have also used, some of imagery from under the water. That was some project that we did to find out and locate like big boulders that are in there that the client wanted to know to make sure that they have the machinery to kind of remove the boulders so they don't get in the way of their suction system. So yeah, we've done very interesting projects.
Really cool. Pete, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, I think from like that initial project that Usman mentioned that we started out with, I think we've really come a long way, and even it's been
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, I think it's been a relatively short time period, but even so, we've taken on some really interesting projects, and I think we even have a lot more room to grow. The whole industry, the whole drone kind of industry, if you want to say, is also growing super rapidly, and I think we're growing along with that.
I don't mean to be cliche, but I think the sky's the limit up to 400 feet with these drones, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you want to see anything that you do has, pros and cons. So you want to see the pros are like, as I mentioned multiple times during this, like safety is the first priority.
Always.
So using a drone, you are making sure that, you have all the safety measures done that, you don't want somebody climbing a slope in a mining site. You would rather send a drone and get the data collected rather than sending somebody on slope.
Yeah.
So you have removed a huge safety, danger from there. So that's why people like drones. The other thing is the data collection is very quick, very efficient. The results are good. Basically what we work on is what we get the feedback from our clients. The imagery we are getting, like somebody would say that, okay, we have this site, you fly over today. So they are getting the imagery from the today's date. They're not getting an imagery from 2020 or 6 months ago or a month ago. They are getting the data today, fresh data. That is very important to the clients because, they are building on what they are seeing today. So we had clients that, we use the old imagery also, like one of the projects where we had, I was managing that project. So we had a client that called us and he had tenant that had stockpiled material on their site, and now the tenant had left and they have left more material than they were supposed to. Now, what do? He called us. So my first intent was like, okay, we're going to collect the data from today and then we compare the data from the previous times.
Sure.
And once we did that, we went into litigation, and I was, and Chris was, we were expert witness on that, and we saved our client $1 million in disposal costs.
Wow. And I mean, just it's absolutely fascinating and impressive that you can do something like that with a drone.
Yeah.
Look what you saved them. Terrific. Right, guys?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I do want to thank both of you, Peter and Usman, PWGC staff here. We're our senior hydrogeologist, right, and a senior GIS analyst. I got the titles right this time, guys?
Yeah.
I should know this. I apologize. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming in and sharing your knowledge and wisdom and experience with these drones. It is a fascinating and it's a fast-growing field, and I'm looking forward to the future and seeing what else we can apply these things to and help the environment and our clients and further the industry with them. Again, I'm Paul Boyce, CEO and President of PW Grocer, the host of the Environmental Echo, PWGC's podcast. And again, if you guys need to get a hold of us for any reason, whether it's a comment, question, or a future topic you want to bring up, let us know. The best way to reach us is www.pwgrocer.com/podcast. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I hope you all had a nice time listening.